Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut from 1999. So yes, back again here with a Stanley Kubrick review, and here is the set that once again I've gone through and rewatched this film for the fourth time, I believe now. So yes, first saw this a few years ago, 2016. So it's actually a bit later than the other films. You know, going through the set there, in particular, going through these films and seeing films like, I think. Yeah, Paths of Glory I saw before this even, most of the films basically I'd seen, from Kubrick before this film, it's technically one of my last films to see for the first time from Stanley Kubrick. So yeah, it's a very interesting film, this of course, and it is a spoilers review. Once again, there's no way I can talk about this film, and not spoil some stuff, technically with the plot. So if you haven't seen the film, which is definitely more kind of common, of course, because this is a lesser seen Kubrick, then of course be warned, will be spoilers. But yes, this, is some, it's kind of a very, very interesting film, to say the least. And this is the final film, of course, which in itself is always very, very sad. When you see a final film from a director, and this is, of course, it's certainly an event, this film, and of course, let's say it, it is the most controversial Kubrick film, in terms of not the kind of like A Clockwork Orange, but kind of just the response, very, very mixed, you could say, and definitely a film that, certainly his most divisive film, absolutely, and yes, I didn't know what to expect, going into this film for the first time, 2016. Of course, I've seen it, 3 extra times since. So within 3 years, I've seen it 4 times. So yes, but I thought, this doesn't seem too popular. Let's face it, this film. So I was just very, very interested. For months and months. I was meaning to watch this film, and I think, the build up. I was just looking at different kind of discussions without spoilers, obviously, and just people's thoughts on this film. It really intrigued me, and then finally, I did watch this film, and before putting it in, I just thought, let's just watch it. I do, have the highest of faith in this because it's Stanley Kubrick, and I'd never been disappointed. I always found, just wonderful, cinema, from Kubrick. So I didn't expect, kind of a bad film or anything, but I was certainly very, interested, very, you could say, kind of nervous. Just what would this film be like? It's very divisive, and quite, it's certainly not too loved overall. Although there are kind of, it has got definitely a cult following, and actually over the years, I will say, of course, it has definitely increased in admiration. Kind of how people regard this film. So I put it in, and I was actually quite shocked. Really, with this film, I just couldn't. Yeah, certainly an interesting film. I was shocked to the core, really, from this and the whole kind of experience of this film. I watched it on my own for the first time as well. That screening. So yeah, I was very, kind of. It was a very interesting experience. After seeing this, I certainly came out very changed, I must say, and certainly for me, I thought afterwards, what a film, and this is a review that's we're not going to go into the conspiracy, kind of theories and stuff too much. We're going to maybe gloss over some things because it's kind of connected, but of course this was, a film that was released. It was Kubrick, of course, died 6 days after the initial kind of final cut screening. So and it's a film that he never, of course, really saw the reaction to, basically, from the certainly the actual kind of reaction here, from audiences, really, and stuff, but and seeing how it done, but so. Yeah, I certainly, what I must say is it was a shocking experience, and, without hesitation, once I saw this film, I just thought, absolutely, personally, it's not for everyone, but I found it to be one of the 40 best films ever made, I think, and it will go higher than that. I think certainly 30 best, in terms of quality films that I've ever witnessed. I was blown away by this film, and I couldn't quite believe it. I have to say it's the most underrated film of all time to me. Maybe there's a couple of contenders there, but I think I'd have to give it to Eyes Wide Shut. I think this is just an absolute magnum opus of epic and mystical proportions. This film is absolutely stunning, in my opinion, and I just became obsessed with this. And I had a break halfway through, and I was shaken, just over the halfway mark, because of course I'd already seen this, the ball scene here, the sequence, and this whole kind of this cult, of course, as we know, this whole kind of epic, around about 30-minute sequence in the middle of the film. And I was shaken from this film. This is, in moments, one of the scariest films I've ever seen. This is a disturbing film, and I think the first time I saw this, I was, really, really shaken. I was scared, out of my mind. It made me just really on edge. And the scenes with, of course, our protagonist of Bill Harford, played by Tom Cruise, I think just when he's getting followed and stuff, it really, really freaked me out, this whole experience. But then, I found it to be as well, at the same time, certainly one of the most hypnotic and beautiful experiences I've taken part in. It's a real participation film, this. There's complete immersion from the opening frame. This is just one of the grandest opuses for me. I think, of course, Kubrick himself, described this. He regarded it to be, at least he hoped it would be his greatest contribution. I think he said to cinema, and I think he's very much talking sense here. It's certainly right up there for me with his very, very best works, and therefore right up there with the best films in cinema. I think this is just certainly alongside many films I consider some of the greatest, right up there for me. And I think it's just a film like no other. I think only Barry Lyndon really I can compare, and it's hypnotic, the particular ways in which it hypnotizes and kind of just takes hold of the viewer, I feel, and just the way it kind of does some sort of magic here, to just put a spell on you and just never let go. It's kind of shot like Barry Lyndon, you could say. Compared to his other works, it's maybe a bit closer to that. I think of the lighting, absolutely, yeah, definitely. There's a lot of natural, feeling I get from this, and just the warmth of interiors and stuff, the way it's lit and stuff. I think is a bit closer to Barry Lyndon than a lot of the films that he made. And I think it's just within the dialogue, I feel the elongating of the dialogue is absolutely the closest, I feel, to Barry Lyndon as well. This film absolutely it done something truly wonderful, and I think since I've seen it more and more, I think it's just grown on me more and more, and I think it's just to a point where I really, this film is absolutely mind-blowing to me, and I do, of course, have such an affection for the film as well. Real emotional film, this, and many people will view this even a few times and not know what's going on, and that's fine. It's certainly not a film that it's very ambiguous, I'll say that, and it's a film that it's in some ways kind of more mysterious than 2001. I think it's almost at times like another kind of Beyond the Infinite kind of sequence, but longer sequences here. You've got throughout the film. You could say the whole film is like this. It just takes a hold of you and never lets go. Even when there is reveals towards the end. With Victor, of course, played by Sidney Pollack. Absolutely amazing performance here, and the reveals towards the end, as we know, saying some of it was staged and stuff. It's still such an affecting and mysterious film. There's only a few things really I notice every time that's actually confirmed there. This cult, this kind of secret society, as we kind of witness, never really is fully kind of addressed, and it's just so disturbing and very, very. Of course, we must be aware. No one watching this will not be aware that, of course, it does clearly. There's a lot of symbolism here. We're not going to get into specifics, but clearly, a lot of meanings as well as just this film. It has a lot of meanings. This film, and things it's saying. as I can see why it's controversial as well. There was a lot of kind of strange kind of ways in which the film was released. So that's all we'll say there. I think, but it's certainly a film that is just really, really disturbing, and even more so I think because of that. But it's just this whole kind of cult and this sequence and what's going on in this film is so scary, really, really affecting, and the use of music here, the masks. I will get into that, more into this review. But I think just that is one of the scariest and most haunting, kind of sequences I've ever witnessed. And of course we start off with just this wonderful opening scene. You see, of course, Bill and Alice, who's played by Nicole Kidman. I love Nicole Kidman. She is so great, and I think this is her best. Certainly my favourite role from her. She's just absolutely wonderful in this film, and I think it's really interesting how they were, a real life couple. Of course at the time, and yes, they played a couple here, and it's such an authentic film. This in their relationship, but of course this, what I consider this. Some people say it's a thriller, erotic thriller, and stuff, or other things, but it's just it's a Kubrick film, so it's different to any other kind of any other film. But I do, it's kind of just this odyssey, this kind of fantasy film. I feel very, very hard to describe, but it's dreamlike, of course, and that's what I kind of describe it as. More than any kind of I can't really describe it as anything more than that. It just is an experience that, yes, it's very disturbing. It's got comedy, of course, though, and it's a romance, a love story. But it's just this this experience, this odyssey. I feel this journey that we take with Bill, and it's just one of the most unforgettable and emotional and spiritual and engrossing films that I've witnessed. Just from the opening, I'm drawn into this. We have this these sequences, of course, when they go to these parties, these balls, and just once again, just straight away sucked into this kind of this world, and this this is such a hypnotic film, of course, as I've said, and the lighting in this film, just the way that Kubrick moves the camera, and of course he overseeing everything in this film once again, just everything, the placement of every object, the colours, of course, and this is something else. It really is some of the best cinematography I've ever seen. Definitely top 20, I would say. It's that good ever. Yeah, I would. I think just behind 2001 and Clockwork Orange and Barry Lyndon. Certainly be below them ones, and not much more than them. I think it's better than The Shining even for me. With the visuals of this film, they're absolutely stunning. Just the lighting, the of course the costumes as well. Wonderful production here, but the way that he moves the camera and the way that he zooms, the way he frames, particularly in the dialogue scenes, and then the recurring zooms into Tom Cruise, in the car, for example. This is one of the thrillers, in that sense, of the highest order. I think actually, and I just actually rewatched Vertigo today, which is very fitting, but I think it's up there with these sort of films, and just how mysterious and atmospheric a thriller it is, I think, and actually how affecting it is, and how it just draws you into this. And of course, it's such a paranoid film. This it's such a one that really one of the themes, of course, is obsession, paranoia, and just this feeling, of course, of being watched. This is such an affecting experience, this one, and yes, from the opening, the first hour is just absolutely stunning. Around that 50-minute mark is when Bill meets up again with Nick Nightingale, the character, of course, that he saw at the first party of the film, and he's a character, of course, that he knew, had not seen him in 10 years, of course, and yes, an old friend there, and of course he meets up with him again, and played by Todd Field, and yes, basically, this character of Nick, tells him about this secret society, and this kind of these events that take place, and how he kind of plays, of course, blindfolded, plays the piano there, and that just straight away kind of just gets you thinking, wow, this is this is interesting, and it kind of takes a hold of you. And there is the rest of the film. Big event in the middle of this, which is actually the of course this secret society, this cult, if you will, in this house, of course, in the countryside, very cut off. What a atmospheric film, and this whole kind of this travelling to this house and this whole event, and when he's going back here, it's just it's one of the great mysteries in cinema for me. And I think, yes, this character of Nick, of course, gives him the password for Delio, and there, of course, he tries to get, of course, the costume and the mask, and then, of course, he travels to this location, and it's just so involving, and it just makes for one of the events in cinema, this whole kind of sequence in the middle, and then, of course, it's the aftermath, which is just so, so affecting. It's so kind of on edge, the paranoia here, and just the way he wants to know more, but he's so, of course, he's scared about, getting followed and everything. It's such a mysterious film, this, and very frightening for me. It certainly is a very affecting experience. Just when these characters are following Tom Cruise, Bill, through the streets. It's one of the most tensest, kind of films of all time. This, and the use of music, of course, just plays into that. The piano use of the score. The original music to the film by Jocelyn Pook is just absolutely stunning. It's so atmospheric, haunting, and beautiful as well at the same time. And of course the existing music, the source music here, used by Kubrick, as always, perfectly. So perfect. Again, the opening credits, perhaps, and just so many moments in this film. You just kind of think about. When you hear this music, you think Eyes Wide Shut. At least I do. Just like with so many films like Clockwork Orange, 2001, of course. These pieces of music that just, they become, tied to the film in so many ways. And I think just, this is such a, as I say, such a kind of affecting experience, such a tense film. And then, of course, yes, this kind of this event, as I say, that takes place in the middle. When I first saw this, as I say, I was just shaken. It really disturbed me, and I think I am just literally, in awe of this. Like I cannot believe it. My face, I guess, seems very shocked when watching this sequence in particular. It is cinema. It just takes a hold of me, and just. Like a tractor beam, it just never lets go, and just the use of music here, the epic music that is used in this sequence, and it's a trance. It puts a spell on you. This one really does, and yes, it just never lets up. There's things that are revealed, of course. Some things towards the end of the film, but leaving it once again, it's a film that never really. Gives up, the wonder, the sense of mystery, and just how disturbing it is. It's certainly just as disturbing, even though you've got a couple of things. Maybe it's even more disturbing, when things are revealed, by Victor towards the end, because it's just everything's so kind of left for you to wonder in so many areas, and this whole kind of this cult here, and what happens, with the death of one of the characters as well because of this. It's so disturbing, and it's so, it's the sense of wonder, just like always with Kubrick. It never leaves, it never leaves the film, even though there is reveals, and stuff, and you can maybe explain some things. It's certainly a film that kind of, remains, a mystery, in so many areas, and rewatching it again and again, it's still, I still can't, kind of figure out for sure what's going on here a lot of the time, and or just this whole kind of cult, this society. I'm so glad that he kind of left a lot of the things, kind of for us to wonder about and kind of dwell on, because it just is such a kind of affecting film, and you think about it constantly, and just really takes a hold of you. At least it did for me, and just every time I've seen this, it's just more of a comfort return, even though it's of course very tense, very scary film. I think it's just it's a lovely film as well. You know, that's what we'll say. That's what we'll talk about. It's such a human film. I love as well how it's set in Christmas time and the Christmas trees, and you know, I think contrasting, of course, with the that house and society. No Christmas trees there, but you know, there's so many locations that you know Bill is going through. It's just wonderfully presented. I think maybe people don't talk about that too much. You know, the Christmas setting, I think, is beautiful. Wonderful choice there by Kubrick, and just I think as well what it says about family and you know human nature. This is what it's about. You know, the heart of it. It could be called a thriller. It could be called you know, kind of a mystery film, or you know, a film full of symbolism. But also at its core, you know, it is really just about human interaction. You know, desires, of course, fantasies. You know, and just it deals with guilt, regret. You know, and how you know, punishment as well. Maybe you know, for you know, different individuals, and how you know this can lead to that. And it's very complex, but it's so sincere, and I think the way it's dealing with human nature and interactions, I just find such a spiritual level to this. It brings me to tears at times. Moments throughout this film, the interactions. It's such a human film, I think, not just with you know, Alice and Bill. You know, Nicole Kidman, of course, and Tom Cruise. You know, just an absolutely wow. The performances from these two. You know, I think this is Tom Cruise's best performance personally, and he's a great action star. He's a legend. But I think his two best you know, films and performances. You know, this is number one for me, and then I would say Magnolia. You know, and maybe a lot of people wouldn't say that, but I do, and I think I think he's even better in these dramatic roles and these kind of, yes, instead of even better than his action roles. I think this is for me his absolute greatest performance and film. No doubt for me, this is the best film of 1999. That's what I would say. I think this is absolutely one of the finest films, and I think this relationship is very toxic. It's very complex, and you know, very on edge, and kind of you know, fueled with you know, kind of lies, deception, of course, anxiety. You know, within this relationship, and you know, kind of betrayal. You know, they're both kind of you know, of course, when Nicole Kidman's character of Alice, you know, kind of reveals that she almost had an affair with this naval officer, and you never see him other than in these dream sequences, you could say. And this is so powerful, and just it's so involved in this. You know, it's and kind of shocking to hear this. You know, but it's so human, I think, in the way that this is explored across the film, and at the end, of course, them realizing that they are, you know, they're kind of, and feeling very what they say is to be grateful. You know, and the way this comes full circle at the end is absolutely beautiful. It's a mystery, it's a thriller, it's a very dark film at times, very scary, atmospheric, very, very strange and affecting film, but actually at its core, you know, it's also such a human film, very spiritual experience, but really, really, you know, pure, a love story. It's about family as well, and you know, but very, very honest film. You know, I've rarely seen a film this honest. Kubrick is doing everything here. He's not holding back here. You know, and what he's doing. He's kind of, you know, making us question, and you know, making the viewer aware of different things. But you know, and human nature and what he's saying about this. But certainly, it's very, very sincere. Not a single moment that feels, you know, like an attack on, you know, anyone, and just, you know, it's saying stuff about masculinity and the treatment of women as well, but it's doing it in a balanced way as well. And you know, the realization, of course, you know, at the end, and the thing that counts is, you know, Bill does realize as well that he, you know, who he really, of course, how much, of course, basically Alice means to him, and of course his daughter, their daughter, and just this theme of family, and you know, and this relationship is really so wonderfully explored. And as I say, so balanced, and it makes it more believable how they do argue, of course, and they do kind of go their separate ways, of course, because you learn, you know, in a part before this, but the mask, of course, you know, went missing, and of course Bill was unaware of what's happened here. He's thinking, you know, where did this go? And he has to pay, of course, for this again. But you know, of course, as we know, towards the very end of the film, it is on the bed there, so that's very interesting as well. But it kind of in that sense it's kind of such a balanced relationship. It's not taking any sides, and it's just the way it comes together is beautiful, really, really is, and how the coexistence, in this sense, and this relationship here, how they do realize how much they mean to each other, and they're not going to do that, again, kind of thing. It's just such a wonderful film, and I think the way it comes together is truly satisfying in this sense, and just the lessons you could say are learnt for this, and of course the going off and kind of getting into different things as well. It's very, very disturbing, but the end of the film, the final scenes are just so comforting and beautiful, in my opinion anyway. And it's just this whole relationship, just in general, I think is one of the finest in film. I love how there's comedy as well. Certainly early on, when they are, they've taken drugs. That scene there is very, very hilarious scene. As well as being a fully investing, just wow, massive scene of dialogue there. It's it's so elongated as well. So just again like Barry Lyndon, and The Shining, and loads of films, like this, where of course the Grady scene, the caretaker scene there, in that bathroom there, particularly the way the dialogue is elongated, and Kubrick of course does this in his film so well. It's absolutely staggering. It's something I get more hooked on the dialogue, and I'm anticipating almost unbearably the tension, waiting for what's happening next, what's going to be said, and how it's going to escalate. And I think the way that Kubrick is in kind of control here, full control of the tone of the film. Not for a single moment is this off tone at all. It's just, and it's so many things. It's so dark at times, but it's funny, of course. The use of humour, and rarely has he been in control to this level. I think, as I say, it's one of his finest films, and certainly the tone of the film is just really absolutely stunning in the way he handles this, and just never a single. I think every frame of this is just so layered. In its cinematography, the contrast, of course, with the blues and the warmth, of the lights as well. Wow, this is stunning. I love the way the dream sequences, portrayed, and just how they're edited into the film. It's so, the narrative momentum, constant in this film, absolutely staggering. How this is working, this, at the highest order here. I can understand how Kubrick, of course, consider this, his greatest contribution. I think this is, one of the very, very finest films, and it's just tonally, it's absolutely stunning. It's perfect in my opinion, and I think, it's interesting how this is so controversial in its, just the reception, very mixed, and it's not a film, of course, for everyone, but I really think it's a film that I just connect to on every level, and absolutely one of the best films ever made. Of course, this film is, a very, very sexual film. And when I first saw this, I was very, very kind of, shocked at the imagery, of course, and the whole kind of the intensity of this film is really so high. And yes, of course, this kind of, it's a sexual, kind of exploring sexual fantasies within the characters, and of course, it ties this all into kind of these themes of commitment, of course, marriage, just family life, and basically occupation as well. I love how it does all this. It's just, and it does it in a really just such a personal way. The way, of course, that Bill is, in particular, kind of managing this, and his whole life, really. And it's just exploring these fantasies, of course, these journeys he takes, very just so intense, and it's all kind of there's this perfect blend throughout the film of kind of realism, and personal kind of characters here, with this fantastical feeling. I've rarely witnessed a film as dreamlike as this, and at times completely kind of like a nightmare. Of course, mainly being that sequence, of course, in the centre of the film, and many moments afterwards, of course, when he's getting followed, perhaps, just really, really, it's got everything, this film, and it's just a perfect feeling here, throughout the film. The atmosphere is just, rarely have I seen a film, with kind of an atmosphere, more affecting than this, and more more consistent. You know, it's so consistent across its. You know, it's an epic film, this in length, and certainly a film that just constantly is full of atmosphere. You know, just a flow to the film as well. That's just remarkable. Really is. You know, it's just you know, a film that kind of just is constant in its flow and its unraveling of events, and you know, this world building is truly stunning, and these characters, of course, so relatable. The character of Bill, you know, just the kind of such a likable character at times, and just you know, charming. Of course, Tom Cruise, you know, one of the most charming individuals in cinema. You know, and of course, it's just perfect casting here. I think just this whole way he you know interacts with people, you know, in his workplace, and also just you know, of course, just outside of this, and you know, all these different you know, this journey he goes on, you know, especially over this night, you know, is something that you know truly is an unforgettable experience, and you know, just never lets up. This film is constant, you know, and it's kind of you know what's going on here, and it's just so intense, this film, but again so comforting. You know, just every gesture, every kind of you know, all the objects, the placement of objects in the background as well. Everything, you know, in this film, every detail, every gesture is so felt and vivid, and you know, so full of emotion. You know, it really is. I'm just wowed by this film. It's got an otherworldly feel as well. You know, the location, just the way it's portrayed and stuff. It just truly is. You know, it's an otherworldly film. This is such a level of kind of spiritual feeling as well, and the way the film elevates is something else. And I just think, you know, while I don't think it's the best Kubrick film, I think certainly one of his very best films, and just what a film, you know, to kind of make as your final film. But of course, you know, as we know, it would have been great to see more films from Kubrick. You know, we always wonder what he would have done next. You know, where he would have, what kind of film he would have made. You know, genre perhaps, because of course he, as we know, he kind of explored many different genres. Never stuck to really a particular genre, and you know, his style is always trademarks, of course. But you know, it would have been so interesting to see, and you know, but of course we must cherish you know, this final gift, you know, truly profound gift that he left, of course, to everyone. And yes, I just think it's a shame that it you know, it didn't certainly on its release it didn't get too much of a warm reception, very mixed. And I think, yeah, it's a divisive film, and of course I understand not everyone will like this film. Not everyone likes every film. You know, there's not a single film that's ever been made where everyone, you know, likes you know, the film. Is even, you know, these films like The Godfather and stuff. But you know, it really is you know, a shame a little bit, you know, how this was received and how it's kind of, yeah, I think it really is an absolute magnum opus, and I am just truly moved by this film. You know, the emotional, you know, feelings I get is something, you know, really is. I think this relationship between you know, Bill and Alice is beautiful. It really is. But of course, it's so complex, layered and tense, and you know, so much kind of going on here. You know, intertwining these different themes, and it's just something else. You know, and the way that Kubrick just draws me in, you know, to this. Even the scenes, you know, when you know, Alice is dancing with that guy, you know, of course, the opening kind of party scene here, you know, just always wowed by how dreamlike that is, you know, and how kind of you know, entrancing, just really reels you in, and just the way the camera is, you know, kind of going round, and the way they're dancing, the dialogue here, the gestures, the just the lighting, everything, the music is so, takes a hold of you, really does, for me anyway. And you know, just you just get so lost in this world, and then of course, very shocking film. I mean, to say this film's scary in places, really an understatement. I am just once again very shaken by this film as well, but so comforting as well. And I just love the way the apartment is portrayed, you know, their daughter, of course, as well, the warmth of this kind of family, and just when, you know, the scenes of them together, and this whole way it's exploring this relationship is beautiful stuff. The ending, you know, the conclusion it comes to, who would have thought, the film would have ended with that line? But it's more than what's usually used, as and the way that word, of course, is used. It's really really profound. So it takes a real genius to kind of make that kind of a moving ending. It really really is. I think it's just that final scene is really really stunning. It really is, and just it's such a human film. That's the thing. At the end of the day, at the end of all these kind of theories about this cult and the meaning, and who they represent. That's of course another thing mentioning. It's kind of all this linked into this film and the release of the film and the kind of rumors of the different edits and stuff, and all this. It's kind of, but right at the core of this, it really is just a human film. Kubrick is exploring human desires. These characters having their fantasies, their kind of there's this so much kind of sexual moments in the film, and different scenes that are just of course Tom Cruise, just his reaction to all this, his experiencing all this, and then of course at the end of it, just this really really moving and sincere scene with Nicole Kidman's character of Alice. I just love this whole narrative arc. This is really beautiful, and just it's of course intense, it's dark, it's very disturbing, but also certainly overall very profound to me, and just truly truly moving. I love this film. It's such an emotional film to me. It's such a just such a peaceful film, I feel, as well at times. Just Tom Cruise, just so amazing in this film. And just when Bill was just walking through the streets at night, really portrays nighttime perfectly. I feel, and it's maybe funny to say, but yeah, I just love the way it does this and how it kind of has this warmth, this real warmth, and in different places he goes in, to different locations, interaction with characters, kind of almost a kind of respite from the kind of outside, and how he's kind of coming into these different locations, the interiors and the warmth of this is just so beautiful, and just a peaceful film. Just Tom Cruise walking through the streets. It's just so enjoyable, so just peaceful and comforting, and just the setting of this, the time of the year, of course, and the way it's portrayed. I love this film so much. Just a perfect combination of just so much that Kubrick was a master at, and yes, just it's a very dark film, of course, and very very disturbing. Truly a atmospheric film that really has a real mystery to this. There's a sense of wonder, throughout, and kind of what really is certain things. What do they mean? What are they kind of? What is this? Kind of thing. But I do think it's also a very very comforting film, and truly truly beautiful film in its spirit, and its its exploration of human nature, and interactions. I think these interactions throughout the film are just really really emotional and just human. There's just beautiful filmmaking, and certainly an absolute stunning piece of cinema. Certainly one of Kubrick's very very best films. So overall, of course, this film to me personally, it's a very controversial film. Of course, I understand that, but for me, this is just one of the finest films ever made, and an absolute magnum opus. No question, absolutely no doubt that this is just one of the very very best films I've ever seen. It's a miracle. It's a magical experience. At once, and it's it's a dreamlike, fantastical film. It's a spiritual experience. It's a beautiful kind of love story, although very very toxic at times and complex. But it's just a human relationship. At the end of the day, it's that's all it is. And I think that just showing both sides, and the flaws of each of the characters. It's just so investing in this sense, and they both have their kind of as we know, they're both their kind of experiences, but then of course at the end of the film they come together, and it's a beautiful film and what it says, and I think just the craft is impeccable. Of course this absolutely gets my highest rating that I give to films once again. No surprises here. A lot of these films that I've been reviewing recently. You know, deliberately, you know, films that I absolutely love. So yes, once again, you know, certainly yeah, no surprise here. This film gets 100% plus tier S. Absolutely a mind blowing film. And you know, as I was pointing out, you know, just this craft is really something here. Of course, 400 days, you know, continuous shoot. So yeah, I think that says it all really. You know, but it really is just full of passion, this film, and I think that just everyone involved, given, you know, they're all to this project, and you know, it's such a, you know, I'm glad it turned out well for, you know, well, people's opinions, you know, close, you know, to Kubrick, of course. I think, you know, he was very proud of the film himself, obviously, and you know, Christian, you know, just, you know, really pleased with this film as well. So that's great. Jan Harlan, you know, of course, he worked in the film as well, and it's just, you know, really, this is, you know, and Leon Vitali, once again, of course, personal assistant, you know, to Stanley Kubrick, and he also plays, you know, he's the person behind the red, you know, cloaked figure, of course, in that event, you know, that big, you know, kind of that of course, that secret society, that whole kind of massive sequence there. He does play that character, so that's really interesting behind the mask, and yeah, just I think this is just a film, you know, that works at the highest of you know, levels technically, and I think just, you know, in terms of just a piece of entertainment, you know, it's so entertaining, I find, and so, you know, it's just so engaging constantly. You know, it's never lets go, and it's so gripping, and you know, in every single aspect. You know, it's so perfectly aligned. You know, everything in the frame, you know, as well, and the use of color, of course. You know, the lighting, everything, you know, that involves just, you know, cinema. But it's just so you know, so flowing as well, and so vivid. You know, this experience is of course a dream experience. You know, dream-like effect that it has, but you know, really, you know, it's a very honest film. It's got everything, as I'm saying. You know, just a truly wonderful film in every sense to me, and I think yeah, I do consider it really the most underrated film. I can't really say otherwise. You know, of all time, I feel, and just, you know, just wow, what an experience once again. The fourth view for me, and yes, truly emotional. I find this, and yeah, just, you know, spiritual experience. You know, and I just, it's so disturbing and dark, and you know, kind of atmospheric, and you know, the paranoia, the obsession in this, the kind of the bits, of course, when Bill is getting followed, and while, you know, that is kind of explained at the end, especially particularly that point, it's still disturbing. This is the thing. It's a what a film. You know, there are reveals at the end and stuff, but you know, it's still despite that, it's a beguiling film. It's really really something that I am just really shaken by once again, and it's a film that has so many questions. You know, still after once you view it, you know, it's just such an enjoyable you know, kind of thing to go to constantly, you know, kind of working different things out, of course, and kind of you know, looking over the film, and maybe looking at a different way and seeing what this kind of is, how this is going this way. It's just such a complex experience, this film, but you know, the purest, I think, of emotions in terms of this relationship in particular, and this whole kind of this narrative with Bill. I think that is something that really moves me, and it's got so much going on, but you know, it's just such a focused narrative, and you know, never really leaving this character. You know, one of my favourite protagonists really in the film, once again, just like so many Kubrick films, and it's just perfect casting. Tom Cruise, as I say, has never been better in my eyes, and Nicole Kidman, the same there, and just so much great performances. Alan Cummins, you know, great performance here. You know, he's great in the film in his little kind of scene there, and yeah, just hilarious moments there, and yeah, Sidney Pollack, great in the film. You know, just a real warmth to this, even though it's very disturbing. It's just such a comfort feel, this, and just, as I say, you know, for example, the way it portrays nighttime, and just these these locations, the way that the kind of Bill was just going through. It's so investing and comforting, and so kind of peaceful at times, and just a wonderful film. We'll end it there. Unfortunately, this is the final Kubrick film to review in terms of chronologically. I will be going back to possibly Fear and Desire, but certainly I'll be reviewing Killer's Kiss. I don't plan on doing the kind of other films, Flying Padre and stuff, but they're not really films, but certainly I look forward to trying out Killer's Kiss and seeing that, and Fear and Desire being kind of student film, in many regards from Kubrick. So yeah, that'll be interesting. And, maybe in a few months it'll be when I do my ranking, getting around to those films, of course, and I think just rewatching a couple as well, including Paths of Glory, just to kind of get the full thoughts on them, kind of films, just so that the ranking, the video is just, the kind of maybe the best I can kind of provide in terms of just my overall thoughts, and the flow of his his films, kind of thing, the filmography and the way it kind of progresses, maybe the stages, just to kind of fully provide something on that. But yeah, I think that'll come in a couple of months maybe. So I look forward to the ranking, and yes, a sad farewell really to Stanley Kubrick here. It's his final film, and what a way to kind of to leave us. Very, very sad. Cannot express how sad it is. That his passing, when he passed, of course. He was to me the greatest, and certainly so thankful, and just appreciate his legacy, the films he left, and it's just what his films mean to me, especially his very best, particularly Barry Lyndon, being my favourite, of course, and all these films, it's something, really, really is, and just wonderful individual, the greatest filmmaker of all time for me, and Eyes Wide Shut, really is one of his most wonderful, complex, but pure films, I feel, definitely, and it's truly emotional, spiritual experience, but it's just as well some work, a real wonder here to behold, and kind of mysterious, very disturbing, certainly, gets me on edge, this film. It's very, very disturbing, but beautiful at the same time. So yeah, of course, wonderful filmography here, of course, the greatest to me, and yes, thank you, of course, to Stanley Kubrick, of course, the one and only, for me, the greatest, and yeah, Eyes Wide Shut, as I say, just as I say, when I first saw this, couldn't believe it, really couldn't believe it, and of course, yeah, certainly one of my very, very favourite films, one of my real, most loved films here, certainly right near the top there, and yes, thanks for watching my review. Very, very sad, of course, but beautiful work here, and what a way to kind of end this kind of, certainly this chronological, kind of exploration of his filmography. Eyes Wide Shut for me is one of the very best he's made, and yes, just amazing, wonderful stuff. And tell me your thoughts in the comments, and because it is, of course, a divisive film, but I think we are here, of course, most of us, I guess, for Stanley Kubrick's overall, filmography. So it'd be interesting to see people's comments, respecting all the comments, and yes, just seeing your takes, on this film and his other work, rest of his work, and how it compares, and how it's very interesting, of course, this work. That's something we all probably agree on. It's very, very interesting, and yes, just a complex work. So yes, interesting to see all of your comments on this film, and just, of course, Stanley Kubrick, or just cinema, as always. And yes, thanks for watching my review.